There we go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 22nd LOCAC Council meeting. I hope you're all enjoying our wonderful solstice weather, and we're going to get started. We're missing a person, but hopefully he'll click in here soon. So I'm going to call to order the meeting, starting with a roll call. Patrick McGibney, we don't see him yet, but we hope he's going to be here soon. Andrea Luker.
Present.
Kristen Horowitz. Did you wait? Oh, okay. You muted. Danielle McNamara.
Present.
Larry Bender.
Present.
Larry Rayo.
Present.
Deborah Howe. Present. John Lind.
I'm here.
Okay. Jim Stanfield.
Yeah.
Molly Brown.
Yes. Yes.
And
I'm
Trish
here.
Martell is absent.
Molly is muted.
Oh, Molly, we want you to unmute.
I'm here.
Great. Good to see you, Molly.
Thank you.
Chairperson announcements. I do have one. It's regarding code enforcement. Trish and I had a meeting with Cynthia Alm. She's the code enforcement supervisor. She explained the process of reporting a code enforcement violation. And there's a place on the county website where you go. There's a hot link to the forms. So you just go to the appropriate form, depending on what it is that you're reporting, and you fill out the information. There's also phone numbers there for you to call. And then once they receive the report, there's a process that they go through. It takes some time. They have to reach out to the property owner, and Cynthia reminded us that there are rights on both sides. So you have to make sure that they have to make sure that they're respectful of the rights of the property owner and the rights of the community that might be reporting the code violation. So you can find all of this information on our website in two places. Under the tab Documents and Archives, down in the right-hand corner, under Recent Announcements, you will find it. And you will also find it on the news page under SLO County Code Enforcement. And you click on that, and it will give you all of the information that you may want if you're concerned about a code issue. And I'm going to let Lindy in. Okay. So does anybody else have any announcements? Any council member? Nobody? Okay. Let's go with county and local reports. You know, I need to see the gallery. Is the sheriff here? Do we see? I don't think so.
I don't see him.
No, he's not present. I have the list broken out.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Kristen. All right, so no sheriff. How about the highway patrol? I don't think anybody's here from highway patrol either. You see anybody? Kristen? Larry?
Nope.
Okay, well, you know, it's summer. People are on vacation. So we do have Claire. Claire's here to do the county report. So I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. Claire Momberger, County Planning and Building. Just my wee little update. I got the monthly reports, the 3 reports to Deborah last night, late in the game. Usually I like to have that earlier, but we had some staffing absences this week. But if any questions come up in your review of those permits, plans, and tree removal requests, please get my email from Deborah or Trish, and we can chat about them. And kind of a really exciting announcement is that our Los Osos retrofit to build study is on track to be published by the end of this month, which means the end of next week. That's been a long time coming. As a reminder, that's the study of our retrofit to build water offset program. the 2-to-1 offset requirement for new builds in Los Osos. Please look out for that document to be posted to the Los Osos section on our county planning website. If you have a hard time navigating to that part of the website, you can get your email to me through Deborah or Trish, and I'll put you on the interested parties list. And then kind of the back half of that announcement is that we don't have a hearing date for the board to consider any amendments to the retrofit build program. Those hearing dates will be scheduled at a later time. We're just getting the study out this month.
Fabulous news. Thank you, Claire. I know you personally have been working on the Title 19 offset, and that's some heavy lifting, especially for someone who's pretty new to their position. So we appreciate your effort.
Thanks for saying that. I definitely cannot take full credit for it, but I'm really excited that it's on its way. The light is really there at the end of the tunnel.
That's so good. Does anybody have any questions for Claire? Any council members that have questions for Claire? Andrea?
Claire, you know, the meeting wouldn't be complete unless we ask you about the latest and greatest news for the Habitat Conservation Plan.
That's right, Andrea. What I have heard is that we are still kind of in that roundabout with the service getting their questions answered, getting their newest questions answered. Sadly, no major update on that right now.
Thank you, Claire.
Okay, anybody else from the council with a question for Claire? Okay, anybody from the public that has a question for Claire? I'm not seeing any hands, and so we'll move on. Thanks so much, Claire. Next will be Supervisor Bruce Gibson, but I see Blake is here. So looks like you're going to be giving the report this evening. Is that right, Blake?
That is correct. I am, pardon me, I'm here for Supervisor Gibson tonight. The big news that I hope folks have heard, but happy to announce it again, is that FEMA had recently declared the February and March rainstorms as eligible disasters for individual and business relief instead of just the public agencies. You might remember that the January storms were called out as an eligible emergency for individuals, but the February and March had not yet. So we got that notice last week. If you or someone you know had suffered damage in those February, March storms, I would encourage you to go to readyslow.org. That's readyslow.org for more information, or to call me, or to call County Office of Emergency Services. The other big deal is last week the county did pass the fiscal year 23-24 budget, closed about a $5 million budget gap, which means that the expected revenues were not keeping up with the expected expenses. But we did get there, and the board now goes quiet for 2 weeks, which pretty much just means that there's no board meetings, but not that there's not work to do. So still a lot going on. I did look ahead at some of the upcoming July topics for discussion. You know, there's some appeals and stuff, but nothing that I think would really interest your council. But happy to answer any questions or look at anything that I can. I had a pretty short report tonight.
Great. Thank you, Blake. Any questions from the council for Blake? How about questions from the public?
Come on, guys, don't do this to me.
Get it easy on you, Blake.
All right.
Yeah, what's up with that? All right, well, let's see. I guess we'll move on then to the CSD report. It looks like Chuck's here to do that report for us.
Muted.
Ask you to unmute. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that.
Good.
Let's see, CSD business. First of all, be glad well, I shouldn't say it that way. We're going to be doing some work up on 16th Street again. The water tanks that are up there, we did one last year, a total rehabilitation, and we need to do the other tank this year. So starting in September, it's going to get noisy in that neighborhood again. We try and be respectful, and always call the office if there's an unusual concern or something that you want to discuss about that. It's going to be a total rebuilding of that, recoating of that tank and the fill line. It'll be about a $700,000 project. It'll last several months, probably through the winter. We recently received a letter from S&T Mutual Water Company. They're the small third water purveyor in town that handles the Sunset Terrace neighborhood. They handle about 8% of the water service in the community. And they are interested in financially participating in the new well that will be drilled out on the east side of the community. The CSD is looking at a new well out in the Buckskin Andre neighborhood, somewhere around that area. And S&T doesn't have, there are limited opportunities for them to drill new wells. All in the west end of the basin. As you know, we're trying to move pumping to the east end to help us manage the saltwater intrusion issue. So they've requested that. We're going to be considering that, and we'll be talking about that over the next couple of months. Interestingly enough, that's also in the Golden State Water District's service area. So there'll be a lot of discussions between the three water purveyors. The CSD is the lead agency on 2 grants for the Basin Management Committee. One is through the state. I believe it was a almost 7-figure grant. It's for a water facility planning study, which is going to help us maximize the way we reuse the reclaimed water from the treatment plant. Broderson is beginning to show signs that it's getting full. That's the leach field up at the top end of Broderson. And so we're looking at ways to maximize the use of that water. The main thing that will come out of that grant opportunity and work product from that is a groundwater transient model, which will greatly improve our ability to understand the recharge and water movement. Right now, we use what's called a static model. It's kind of a snapshot in time. And as always, the more complicated a model is, the better a picture it'll give you. And so this will be a transient model that'll study trends and things like that. The second grant is actually from the NEP, the National Estuary Program. They've given us $70,000 toward a new monitoring well. It's going to be at the east end of Skyline Drive, the cul-de-sac there, the east end of Pine Street. There'll be a new monitoring well that's going to go in there, and this will replace the Golden State well off of Rosina Drive, which has been very controversial because it's also a production well. Ideally, your monitoring wells and production wells don't overlap because of the potential for leakage through the borehole in the well. And you can tell with the Rosina well, the salt levels fluctuate according to how hard you're pumping from that well. It's that sensitive. So we're going to put a monitoring only well in there to replace that. And finally, at July 6th, we're going to be considering the release of a request for proposal for a standard of cover study by the fire department. And the results of this study is going to provide an analysis to make recommendations regarding appropriate staffing and deployment. Do we even have the correct location for that fire station? We know we just had a physical assessment of the building, and the building is fine. We need to do some remodeling to bring it up to current standards and more usable for the crews. But the building's fine, but just to make sure, we're going to go through a whole standard of cover study and just make sure that before we spend a substantial amount of money on this station, that this is the place that it should be. And one more thing you might be hearing from, I know, and it kind of relates to this in the sense of emergency services. It became apparent January 9th that we didn't have a real coherent community plan for emergencies, where for people to gather. I think it was the Rouse parking lot. We have a community center, power was out. We did not have backup generators. So some of that's some of that equipment I hear is stored in Morro Bay because it didn't have room for it at the community center. But when South Bay Boulevard's flooded, we don't have a helicopter. So there's a study that's going to be happening looking at upgrading the facilities at the community center. One aspect of that is going to be moving the sign that is now over behind the traffic light signal, maybe to the other corner by the Red Barn. Maybe that'll come through your traffic and circulation committee because the sign would be in the county right of way. We're just scratching the surface on where to site the sign, the 10 feet from the curb, all those kind of issues. So you'll be hearing more about that. But that's an exciting effort to really make the community center kind of more of an emergency services response place too.
Chuck,
And
just
that's-
for clarification, you're mentioning the sign a lot. Is that just for visibility's sake in emergencies?
No, I think the community center would like it updated. That thing's pretty
Okay.
old. It's manually operated. You've got to get up on a ladder and physically
Yeah.
change the
We
letters.
could have an LED or something, yeah.
There's no power to that corner. So that's the thought about moving it to the Red Barn side. We could easily run power out there from the Red Barn. Probably wouldn't put solar panels out there. That was my first thought. And then there's the thought of this is probably a lower level sign like the one at the corner of South Bay Boulevard and Los Osos Valley Road. And solar panels that low are probably a invitation for vandalism. So if we got power, we'll put the solar panels up on the roof of the building.
Awesome.
And so that's all going to be combined. I think you'll hear more about the community center and emergency services operations.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Regarding that sign, are you talking about the garden area that we're planting? I mean, we would welcome a monument sign because nobody knows you're coming to the park unless you know it. Could this sign have a dual function as a noticing sign as well as a monument sign?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by a monument sign. The monument, you mean like,
You're coming to Los Osos Community Park.
right? Yeah, the community center, community park, whatever it winds
Yeah.
up being named. Well, yes, and the point is to have a changeable message LED readout there so that the different events that happen, and certainly for emergency response situations.
You are right.
But
I just
For
want-
announcing bingo night, the food giveaway on Wednesday, all those things would be part of the messaging.
Right. I just wonder if we could combine welcome to the park and your messaging sign.
I think there's opportunity for discussion. We're just getting started. This will be a big effort.
Okay.
And I think the estimate was $9,000 to kind of pretty up the existing sign. And there's only so much lipstick. And so the ideal would be to move the sign to a more feasible location that's better for everyone.
Yeah. I have also a question on what you stated regarding Broderson. I didn't know that Broderson as it functions could fill up, and therefore we may have more recycled water to dispose of than Broderson can handle. Could you address how that works?
It was anticipated that it would accept 100% of the effluent, and it has been so far. Some has been going to minor contracts here and there, but not a whole lot, not even the schools yet. We're about ready to finalize those. But it was anticipated that it would handle everything, and it has been building up and building up and building up. We're monitoring, but lately the rate of buildup has been slowing. And so we don't know if it's getting full. It's starting to show those signs that we just put a whole series of new transducers in last year, downhill monitors. The transient model might help with this. We're not sure. And it's important because the criteria that all of the basin plan are based on assumes that we're dealing with 100% functioning at the Broderson leach field. And that's why last year we scaled back the sustainable yield estimate for the year, because we know that leach field is only functioning, at the time it was 50% as it's getting full. We think it's fuller than that now. We're not sure if it's approaching 100, But that is the importance of that that statistic. It relates to your sustainable yield because it was based on that functioning. But we'll have plenty of places to use that water.
Yeah,
I had a question about that too, Chuck, because at the BMC meeting, it was said that the latest measurement of the Broderson Mound, it leveled off. You know, that they're estimating it's at 50% right now, and it sounds like it didn't increase very much, and that there was concern that it may not ever reach 100% that they were hoping for.
That's yeah, that's kind of what I heard too. I think I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do better than 50%. And I don't know what that really means. If it's only 50%, do the models need to be adapted? I don't know. I don't know exactly what that means.
All right, do we have any other questions from the council about the CSD report? Okay, I think we have a couple questions from the public, so I'm going to start with Lindy. See if I can find you on here to ask you to unmute. There you are. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Chuck, thank you for the update on Broderson. In the forward studies that are being considered, are we looking at actually what was probably the most effective use of recycled water was to offset the agricultural use, which is on the east side of the basin where we're trying to put, new wells, which will, as long as the farmers are pulling water out of their new wells, will be competing with removing that water. So is that going to be re-looked at?
That will be part of this feasibility study, what to do with the water. And a lot of that has to do with the agricultural interests. So far, not a lot of people are interested in trading their well water for the reclaimed water. We've had some interest with starting up new operations and getting the reclaimed water, but that wouldn't be offsetting pumping.
I think my question is the original reason that the farmers did not want to take that water in exchange for not pumping was that it was too expensive. And to me, if you lower the price and make it very attractive to them, they would maybe consider stopping the pumping from that part of the basin, which would then, so it's an incentive that I don't think has ever come forward. So just curious.
I'm not sure, the county was, I think, involved in those discussions. I'm not sure where a price point was, if that was a reason why things didn't happen. But as I said, that I'm sure will be examined with this feasibility study.
I certainly hope so. Thank you.
And now I'm going to ask Dave and or Bev to unmute and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I just want to make a comment on the sign at South Bay and Lazos Valley Road. Unless you're sitting there at that signal for a really long time, it's very hard to learn anything from that sign. And I would hate to have the sign at the corner of the community park be the same kind of setup, where unless you're sitting there for a long time while it cycles through all of its messages, you can find out what the heck it's supposed to say. So that's just my comment about the kind of sign that's out at the corner that we already have. It's not very useful to me.
Okay, I think we'll be looking for input as that project develops.
Right. Thank you, Dave. Any other comments or questions from the public or from the council before we move on? Okay, not seeing any hands. I think we'll go on to the Chamber of Commerce report. Should be Jim.
The Congress report.
Chamber of Commerce.
The Chamber report?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we just finished a beautiful awards dinner. Those who participated were pretty excited about it. It really went off well, and the food was excellent. Everything went well, and it was a good experience. We're about launch new event called Passport Festival of Flavors. And you buy a passport and you go to the restaurants, pick up things. Added a couple new ones. Subway is joining us. I think you'll enjoy having it. Be some information on the website, some social media information. Get them. They'll be $40, and we have about 10 restaurants. It's they'll be running from July 15th to August 15th. So while you might buy it in the next week or so, don't start using it until the 15th of July. Big event coming up in the.
Okay, so are you saying that it will be good until August 15th or July 15th?
It starts on July 15th and will be good until August 15th.
Got it. Okay.
Well, 30 days, yeah.
All right. Any questions from the council for Jim on the Chamber of Commerce? Nope. How about from the public?
Wait, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm looking at the website and it doesn't have notice of the event. So where can we?
It's not up yet. We just
Okay.
got the booklet, so we're just
Okay, cool.
beginning.
Thank
We'll
you.
be getting something in the next week.
Okay, thank you.
Great. All right. All right. I'm not seeing any other hands for
You're just too quick.
chambers, so we'll move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments? I love this. You're making my job very easy, guys. We're moving through this real quick. Oh, Lindy, you have a comment. Let me ask you to unmute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just had a question. I've been so busy, I haven't paid a whole lot of attention, but I noticed that we got a new listing for the projects that are the county projects that are up for approval and discussion. But again, the unmitigated or the oh boy, I never remember this word. The other projects that the county doesn't believe need to come before LOCAC or any other public review are the ones that I'm concerned about.
Ministerial?
Ministerial, thank you. I'm sorry. Brain problem here. And I just, again, how many, if we can't see what the ministerial applications are, those are a lot of projects that the county goes ahead and approves without review by our land use. So I'm just wondering if that isn't something that we need to request again. I'll talk to Larry more about that again. It just seems like we really need to be informed and made aware. And most of those that are on the list are, you have to go through the whole process of entering them in the computer system, trying to, get them to come up. It would be a lot easier. I think, we'd have much more transparency if the county would work with us and have those be easily accessible. So you can go, hey, yeah, somebody wants to build a 3,000 square foot home and a guest house, and it was approved. Anyway, it's just again, that question, I don't understand why it's not more transparent what the county is approving. So.
Right. Thank you, Lindy. Any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any, so we will move on to the treasurer's report. Back to you, Jim.
Yeah, real quick, we have a beginning balance of $1,808 at the end of May. You earned a whopping 16 cents interest. At the end of the May, it was $1,808.92. We have a check outstanding of $248 for the post box for a year that hasn't come through yet. The net really is we're just around $1,500.
Okay.
Where we are.
Any questions for Jim on the treasurer report?
Deborah, just because Jim brought it up, have you been checking the post office box at all?
Yeah, I have been. I haven't checked it in the last week or so. Do I need to go and, are you expecting something?
No, I'm just,
Oh, okay.
every
Yeah,
time I
I do
look
check,
at,
I do check the post office box.
every time I look at it, it's empty. So
Exactly.
maybe we don't need a post office box, you know,
Uh,
and
well,
not now, later discussion.
$248 for a year, that's a big chunk of money.
we do get a check from the county when we turn in our budget, so we might need it for that.
Okay, that's fine. It's worth it right there.
And we do occasionally get letters from the public, but not very often.
Okay,
Okay, that's what I can add to that.
I think it's
Okay.
a valid question, Larry, so thank you.
But it was a very valid question, yeah. Maybe there's another way that we could do things. Something we can talk about. Let's go to committee reports. Larry, do you want to start us off with land use?
yeah, we didn't have our meeting this month, due to technical issues and stuff, but I've worked all that out. We've got our next meeting coming up July 3rd, just before the big 4th of July. 2 projects we'll be reviewing. One is a issue that we're having, that people are building unpermitted stuff and they sell the property and then the new owners want to get it permitted. But if anyone's interested, come join us at the meeting and put your 2 cents worth in.
Okay. Does anybody have questions for Larry? Somebody has a question for
That's
you.
the question.
Okay, maybe, give me a treat or let me outside, something like that. That's what my dogs usually say. All right, let's move on to trees and landscape. Who's doing that report tonight?
Thanks, Deborah. I will. First of all, we're really excited to welcome Danielle McNamara to our committee. She joined us at our last meeting, which was last week. And I'm going to have some competition here, apparently. With the dog, not with Danielle. And we are going to be amending our meeting start time to 6:30. So that will start at our next meeting, and we'll make sure we'll put that on the website. And I think that'll make a couple of other members pretty happy. So 6:30 from now on. We did talk about planting on Palisades, planting some trees on Palisades and Los Osos Valley Road near the community center. And John Lint went ahead and contacted County Public Works, and we're going to be meeting with County Public Works in the next couple of weeks to talk about the potential and what that looks like. The other thing that I wanted to just briefly say is on the minutes of every meeting that we have, we'll be listing at the end of the minutes the projects that have been brought up and contemplated, because I feel from meeting to meeting we lose track of the projects that are brought up. So we'll just have a running list of projects on our meeting minutes. That's all I have. John, did you have anything?
Well, I'd just like to follow up on what you mentioned about a new project. The 2 projects we're talking about that we'd love to have input on is planting trees along Palisades from LOVR down to the library. That would be on the west side of Palisades. And we're going to be meeting with Public Works, a fellow named Mike Tabaris. And we're trying to come up with a date that, and I'm just going to announce it to everybody, that we would love to have anybody meet with Mike either on Wednesday, the 28th of June, or Friday, July 7th. Either date would be at 4 p.m. If it works for you, please let me know on my email which you would prefer. And the second project is more of a landscaping project on LOVR. If you've ever paid attention, right in front of the skate park, and where the sign is now, there's a strip of land that has nothing on it. And we've talked to the garden club and apparently they're interested in helping out. So it's just more, 2 more projects that we're working on, and we'd love to have anybody join us.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Any questions? Oh yeah, it looks like before I go to you, Dave, how about any questions from the council?
I just wanted to give you guys some appreciation. I really thought that the first event you guys put on was amazing. You even got signs, and I was very impressed. And then it's very cool to see you guys like concretely moving stuff forward. So
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to ask Dave to unmute, or maybe it might be Bev.
No, it's Dave again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't see Lindy's hand, but she and we have been talking for years about getting a sidewalk down the west side of Palisades to the library so that the baby buggies wouldn't have to be rolled in the middle of the street around the parked cars. And if there is talk about putting in parking, putting in trees, as John mentioned, along that side of the road, I certainly hope that it won't be something that will preclude there ever being a sidewalk that could lead people to the library from Los Osos Valley Road.
Certainly not. Yeah, we would plant the trees close to the fence and leave space for either a trail or sidewalk, whatever we can get the county to put in.
Good. The county doesn't really have much interest in putting anything in there, but there's always hope.
We'll work together on that, John. I'll try to see about getting some funding for a sidewalk or a trail, and you bring the funding for the planting, and we might do this as a joint project.
That'd be great.
All right. Any other comments for the Trees and Landscape Committee? All right, so we're going to move on to Kristen, Outreach.
hi guys. So I have been out of the country and then I got long COVID and I'm still, you're like, what's this? So I have been out of count since Tom left as co-chair. We decided to go on hiatus until September because everyone is on vacations and it isn't coordinated. We are currently looking for members, particularly what I am interested in, although I've not conferred with my members. There was interest in participation at booths, like a farmer's market and events. And then on top of that, bringing back the Red Barn event where people actually get to meet all the different public agencies and us and like get more awareness. But right now, I'm just don't have the energy to do that on my own. So it would be next year. Maybe it's a great time to do the election at the same time. So we'll see. And then I'll see what else I have on my notes here. Also, I know that we have interest in helping coalesce voices of the community. I know that the CSD is pretty excited to have us take the lead on that as well. So the outreach committee is very keen on that. But again, not till September. And then the only other tiny thing, which is related to treasurer's report, is the bill for the website domain will be coming due. It'll be very not expensive. And so Jim, when I pay it, I'll send a reimbursement. I'm currently paying for the hosting and I don't really care. So that's that from us.
All right. Any questions?
Yeah.
The outreach committee. All right, thank you, Kristen. Water report, actually, Larry is going to do that this evening. I love your background, Larry.
Oh, thank you.
It must be after all the rain we had.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that anymore. It's a little bit brown, but still looks nice. So at the BMC meeting yesterday, there was a lot of information given out, so bear with me, and I'm going to try to disseminate that to everybody here. One of the first things that came up was that the Los Osos Basin was included in the Department of Water Resources upcoming statewide airborne electromagnetic survey. And this data that's collected from this is going to improve our understanding of the Los Osos Basin and hydrogeology and seawater intrusion. It was initiated on April 26th this year. However, due to weather conditions and the need to support emergency flood response efforts elsewhere in the state, they didn't complete the survey, but DWR has indicated that they will return in the fall of 2023 to complete it. The Cleith Harris geologists completed the development of the Los Osos well database. So that's a database of all of the private wells and public wells throughout Los Osos, so that we can get a better understanding of where all the straws are, coming out of our water basin. And that will be presented to the BMC at a future meeting. So, but it's getting close. BM staff are working on permitting construction, and I think Chuck brought this up, of a new monitoring well on the east end of Skyline Drive this year. And this will monitor Zone E, which we don't have. I think we only have 2 wells actually monitoring Zone E specifically. And BMC approved the selection of Cleith Harris geologists to provide the monitoring, well design, and construction management services. An update on the retrofit to build program. Medeas Water Management Incorporated is preparing a study to update water usage estimates for urban and rural residents sourcing water from Los Osos groundwater basin. That they will be preparing the technical memorandum describing the analysis, and is projected to be out by June 30th, so the end of this month. The Los Osos community plan is being reviewed by the Coastal Commission, and a hearing date has not yet been scheduled. In the meantime, the county has been meeting with BMC and BMC staff to discuss potential policy changes, considering ongoing basin monitoring and basin management plan implementation efforts. Screwed that one up. The Los Osos Habitat Conservation Plan, currently addressing the latest round of comments on the plan from the Fish and Wildlife, and anticipates submitting the HCP in summer of 2023, so that they're planning on that coming out pretty soon. I think Chuck mentioned this, the county is preparing recycled water connection plans for 4 school sites in Los Osos and the Los Osos Community Park. So that's, let's see, they anticipate having all the site plans completed by August 23rd. And that also, the county has 90% plans for the Los Osos Middle School. Average indoor water usage for 2021 was estimated to be 38 gallons per person per day, per person, and remains at that number currently. So 38 gallons is what, and that's indoor use. That's not all of our use. So I think all use is closer to like 60 or 60 plus per person per day. But I think the reason that they do the indoor use only is because that's what goes to the sewage treatment plant, and that's why they need to keep those numbers going. They had 5 action items. The first item was they approved the final draft of the 2022 annual monitoring report and authorized submission to the court. They have to do that every year, and their deadline is June 30th, so they had to get that submitted to them. The groundwater production for the calendar year of 2022 is estimated at 2,010 acre feet, which is only 10 acre feet more than it was last year. A summary of the basin status was the basin received below average rainfall in 2022. Seawater intrusion front in Zone D retreated towards the coast in between fall of 2021 and fall of 2022, which was an improvement. Unfortunately, the intrusion front in Zone E advanced inland between those same time, between fall 2021 and fall 2022. So that deteriorated. The basin yield metric increased in between 2021 and 2022 and does not meet their goal, the basin plan goal of 2022. So the basin yield metric is basically 80% of the sustainable yield. And we were at like 84% this last year. The water level metric increased in those dates, which was an improvement, but it hasn't reached the target value. The chloride metric decreased, and it has not reached its target value. So that was, both of those were improvements. The nitrate metric increased, which was a deterioration, and it has also not met its target value. Water levels in the upper aquifer along the bay remain safely above the protective elevation, except for a well near well UA5, where an increase in chloride concentrations warrants further investigation. Their second item was that so they released early data for spring of 2023. So this was in May, I think, is when they take their data for that, and they had some good results actually. The good news is that the water level metric raised dramatically to just above 4 feet. Up almost 2 feet, a little less than 2 feet. So that's a level that hasn't been seen since the mid 1970s. So that was really encouraging news. The not so good news is that the chloride metric continues to slowly rise. So we want the chloride metric to come down and the groundwater levels to go up. The third item was that they approved GSI Water Solutions to provide a peer review for the water recycling funding program study grant. Chuck talked a little bit about this, to develop a transient model and analyze recycled water and supplemental water projects to improve our sustainability. The other good news, and Chuck talked on this too, was that they approved a new well for skyline monitoring, which is going to be again in the ninth, in the zone E. Let's see. The other thing that they're talking about, and unfortunately they ran into technical issues and they had to shut down the meeting, and this is going to be addressed next meeting next month. But they were talking about re-including the third well in Program C. So in order to help the groundwater situation, there was 3 wells that were included in Program C. The first well is already up and running. The second well they've just put in, and that's over on kind of the corner of South Bay Boulevard and Bay Oaks Drive. That's been installed, but they still have to hook it up and all that. And once that's up and running, that will help ease a little bit of the water demand, because it's further inland and it won't cause as much seawater intrusion. And the third well, and one that Chuck brought up, that possibly S&T is looking to go in on, is going to be even more inland. They haven't specified an exact site for that yet, but it will really help also help improve the metrics a little bit if that can get up and running. But again, they weren't able to finish that. because the meeting basically stopped report, the whole online thing went down. And again, something I mentioned with the Broderson thing is that they brought up the fact that the Broderson Mound, the last readings at the Broderson Mound were close to what the previous readings were, and it looks like it might have leveled off at 50%, and they're going to continue to look at this, but it started to bring into question exactly how well that mound is going to develop to the 100% that they were hoping for in order to really push out the seawater intrusion. So anyway, that's thanks for bearing with me on that. And that was the report.
Yeah, it does. What a complete report. Thank you so much, Larry. Those meetings, the Basin Management Committee meetings do go on for a long time, and there's a lot of technical information there, and we appreciate your report. Do we have any, I don't know how you could have any questions. He was so complete, but if you do have a question, just raise your hand and Larry will do his best to answer.
I don't have a question, but I want to highlight the value of you guys being able to sit in on these meetings to report back to everyone. And it actually reminds me on outreach, if there are people who enjoy sitting on these meetings or have the space to do so, I know that the whole council is looking for people to represent us and be able to bring things back to us. And this is a perfect example of that. So thank you.
Great. All right. Margaret, looks like you have your hand up. Go ahead. Let me see. I need to ask you if I can find you. Here you are. There we go. No, you're still muted.
I did that. Okay.
There you
So we don't have a well near our house, but on Lupin, I don't know if everybody, it's near that Dirt Street, Doris. There's a monitoring, they're monitoring the seawater intrusion there. It's not a well, but it's a lot that I guess is owned by the county, or I don't know if it's the CSD or the county. And I was wondering what are the results of that, because, you know, we're pretty close to the water here. And I don't know, you know, when you ask the people that are doing it, you know, they just say they don't know. So
your question is what, Margaret? You want to know what are the results of the seawater intrusion on that?
yes, on
location?
that, but I don't know if the gentleman that's talking, I'm sorry, Larry, if he knows anything about that, because it's not a well, it's just a monitoring, they're just monitoring it, you know?
Well, if it would, a monitoring well is considered a well, they just don't pump and use water out of it for domestic use.
Oh, okay.
I would have to look, you know, the report from the county, the study that they, is like 350 pages or longer. But they have maps that show all the well locations on it. I would have to look at that and see what well, and then they also have data sheets that shows, if it was monitored, it shows exactly what all the levels are. And what you want to look at for seawater intrusion is the chloride levels for that well. But you'd have to kind of go to the annual monitoring report that is posted on the county website. If you look under Los Osos, you can look under Los Osos BMC and it'll pop up there. And it's quite a large document, but you can find a bunch of maps and it will show well locations. And if you can kind of locate, that well where you're saying it is, then once you have a well number, then when you look in the graphs and stuff, you can actually find what the data is, for the last 20 years or something.
So you just look up Los Osos V like Victor MC.
B as in boy.
Oh, B.
So it says B as in boy, M as in Michael, C as in Charlie.
Okay,
PMC, and you'll find they should have the latest report, which is the 2022 final report. Should be posted, I guess now. 'Cause
Well,
they-
it was just passed, so it might be a week or two before you could find a draft, the final draft of it right now and get that same information, but the final one probably won't be available for another week or two or so.
oh, okay,
Okay.
well, thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions for the water report? Okay, so next is the Active Transportation Committee. We did not have a committee meeting this month in June, so I do not have a report. We'll move on to agenda items, consent agenda items. We don't have any. And then we're going to go on to, oh, well, the land use, Larry, you already said it got canceled because of technical issues. So, so there's nothing there. Is that right? Okay. So I am going to be sharing my screen. The Los Osos equestrian community is somebody talking? All right. The Los Osos community, the Los Osos equestrian community has put together a PowerPoint presentation. Because of technical issues, they sent it to me. I'm gonna, Margaret, I think you need to mute.
Oh,
Could you mute?
okay.
Please? Okay, great. I think that's better. I'm going to do my best to run the PowerPoint, and I'm going to introduce Lisa Shin. She's going to represent the equestrian community, talk to us about what's going on for them. So give me just a moment while I pull this up, and cross your fingers that I've got my act together here. So, there we go. All righty. Uh-oh, Kristen, can you unmute Lisa Shin for me? Because I didn't do that before I went to share screen. Okay. Oh, Lisa, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, well, we can hear you too. So the PowerPoint is ready to go. If you just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide, I will do that.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Shin, and I'm a retired science teacher of 35 years in Cayucas, and I'm an equestrian. And I'm here to speak for the Los Osos equestrian community. You know, equestrians have a really deep and rich history in Los Osos. You go to the next slide. Donald Spooner, like his grandfather, was an avid horseman, and he was an original member of the Coasted Mountain Assistance Group that helps maintain Montaña de Oro State Park. Next slide, please. So I can't see the right side of the slide because our pictures are in the way, like our faces.
Oh,
Is there
there's a way that you can minimize that. If you go up to where the pictures are, there's a way you can minimize it.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, there you go.
So the Coastal Mountain Assistance, known as CMA, does trail work repair, search and rescue. They fundraise for horse camp, and they do park patrol. Next slide, please. They built and helped build the horse camp that we now have, which brings tremendous commerce to our local businesses, our restaurants. Sea Pines has pins down there where people ride their horses down and have lunch. Next slide, please. So I don't know if you know, but there's 61 miles of equestrian trails on Montaña de Oro. Horse camps there, again, bringing in visitors from all over California. So the Los Osos equestrian community were really concerned over the loss of use of a longtime existing corridor that allowed access to these trails from east to west and west to east. Next slide, please. I know this is tiny and hard to read.
I can enlarge it. I can enlarge it, Lisa.
I'm
if you-
afraid if you do, I'll lose the gist of the right-hand side. If you could put
Okay.
a cursor on the farthest east boarding stable of Los Osos.
Oh, here?
No, a little more east. There.
Here?
This is the polo field boarding stable, east of Montaña de Oro. And if you come down a little bit, you're going to see Love Farm community. And you can see this trail that kind of comes in. And if you
Sorry.
go, nope, back.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. If you go to the orange dots, which are really hard to see in that corner, there they are. Go up the trail right there. Those are individual homeowners that have horses. That's another community. If you come down to the yellow dotted line in the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve and follow the dotted lines, you're going to see a corridor. If you keep going, you're going to keep going, and then you're going to see the seahorse community. There are 3 boarding stables in this community. If you continue west, you're going to see the Pacho Valley community, which are private homes, and there's a lot of horses, and there's also a boarding stable on Seawind there. Next slide, please. Can we hit the next slide? Thank you. Historical use. People have been using these trails and accessing through this corridor. Next slide, please. So for more than 50 years, equestrians have been using this trail, this corridor that connects the west side to downtown Los Osos if they want to go downtown, they want to go to the parade, and then it connects the east side to Montaña de Oro. This particular family in these 2 pictures on the left, she was taking her children to Sunnyside School on that trail from the Seahorse community. The picture on the right, these are now adults with their own children. These are the same family using this same trail before it was taken away from the community. Next slide, please. This is the Los Osos Christmas parade. How we get there is down this corridor that kind of drops you off there, kind of near the post office. And I am in the bottom right-hand slide, and I've used this trail for 32 years. And I know the lady in the cart with the pony, 52 years. Next slide, please. So the current status, signs have been put up, no horses. And some of these signs are actually on the trail that we are allowed on, so it's caused a ton of friction. I know people that have had dogs attack their horses, and there's a lot of, you don't belong here anymore. Horses don't belong here in Los Osos. And you know, there was a lack of public outreach to engage the community about losing access. We didn't go to these meetings. It just wasn't put out where we knew about them. So this loss of this trail access from the east side to the coast has forced equestrians onto the streets with vehicles. Next slide, please. So the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve Habitat Conservation Plan is still under consideration. This trail is affected by that. Our corridor trail exists on the edge of this, and it has specific objectives. One of them in green, you're going to notice, is to link trails, to establish trails in areas adjacent to the preserve, and to allow limited access for equestrians and leash dogs. And it can be provided in limited instances with the approval of the resource agency. So we're requesting limited access to this lower fire break trail that we've had for over 52 years. Myself personally, 32. It's going to allow access to MDO from the east and to town from the west. Could we have the next slide, please? Fish and Wildlife is now taken over this piece of property. And I'm going to give you some time to kind of look through these bullets. But if you notice the last bullet, yes, horses are prohibited except with the designated horse trails in areas identified. And there's a 630G regulation that allows for that. And there are over 10 places that already are allowing that. If you look at the next slide, these are reserves that allow designated horse trails to link one to the other side. There are 10 of them. The Habitat Conservation Plan, it allows for our trail use. Fish and Wildlife can designate limited use to keep our trail open. Next slide, please. So bottom line, Fish and Wildlife can designate an equestrian trail at the Morro Dunes Ecological Reserve. There's already a fuel break and it's mixed with trees. It's not denuded or anything. It's already there behind the homes on Highland Drive, which would provide a place for the equestrian trail, and it doesn't disturb the habitat that's existing. It's been used for many years by riders to access downtown. People go down and go to the restaurants. They go down to Hannah's taco stand. They go to the parade this way, or they come from the other direction to Montaña de Oro. Next slide, please. Lastly, Pacho-Rodman intersection. I know most of you know about this, but the horses are having a tremendous, not only horses, the children going to school, pedestrians, bicyclers crossing right here. And if you look at the next slide, please. These are two people that were crossing last week, and you can see they're both looking in both directions, probably doing some Hail Marys at the same time. And if you look at the next slide, they're trying to come home. You can see them behind that car, and there are cars coming in both directions and down Rodman. I happen to live right down the road, the little house right to the right, and people drag race on this road. I've seen cars go 100 miles an hour on this road. It's extremely dangerous. Next slide, please. So the cool thing is, we're here to ask LOCAC to support our efforts to maintain trail access to MDO and the Back Bay and to find a solution for safe crossing at Pacho and Rodman. And these crosswalk signs these flashing signs don't require the same red tape that a regular crosswalk would require. They have a lower button for pedestrians and an upper button. If you're on a horse, you can push it. You don't have to get off your horse. Next slide, please. So here's a little girl whose mom takes her to school on her horse. This is a Monarch Grove school. And when I was in my 20s and I taught at Cayucas School, I used to ride my horse to Cayucas and park her in the Borodori garage. I rented the parking, the little pasture there, and I would walk up to my classroom with my backpack. It's my childhood dream, and I'm kind of looking at this little girl's same dream. And we just want to keep Los Osos the special flavor, alternative transportation. We've got bicyclers, hikers, horseback riders, and that's really special. So thank you for listening to this presentation. And if there's any questions and I can answer them, I will.
Great. Oh, thank you, Lisa. That was very good presentation. I'm gonna try to, if I can find my cursor, stop the share. In the meantime, Kristen, could you see if anybody has their hand up? Looks like Andrea has her hand up. And
Didn't need me, there you are.
Can you, Lisa, thank you for that presentation. I'm missing the part where when the change was made and why. And I think you alluded to it, but can you just kind of succinctly review that for me?
I imagine, okay, I actually can find the answer to that. I don't know the answer, the exact, but I know that the designation to a reserve was made many, many years ago. Is it over 50? 1983.
Is what I heard.
That's what I think. I'll find exactly. But the signs just went up, and the information that we're not allowed to be out there, that came last year. And the signs went up maybe 2 months ago. And the signs are sitting right, we're allowed to go up Broderson. And so the signs are on Broderson. So you're getting people saying, you don't belong here anymore, get off. And a lot of altercations.
Just as a follow-up, what was the impetus for that though? That's what I guess what I'm missing. So it's been a reserve for a long time. it sounds like they always could have been up, but the signs just went up. Was there something that triggered that? That you're aware of?
Probably, does anyone know the answer to that?
Well, I'm going to make an educated guess, Andrea, and I think it's because the Habitat Conservation Plan is just about to be signed. And this is where we're going to be experiencing the restoration and the offset credits for any type of project that is done in Los Osos. So they're wanting to make it clear that this is an ecological reserve. And you know, I didn't live here then, but apparently horses went all over in that area. And so they don't want that.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Thanks. Now it's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think now what they're looking for, my understanding is that they just want to create this perimeter trail that provides continued access between the east and the west. And, you know, obviously not going into the interior part of the reserve, which is available for hikers, but not for horses.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Lisa, what authority, whose signs are these?
Fish and Wildlife.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, Molly, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so is Fish and Wildlife the federal or the state?
State.
That's my first question.
State.
State? Okay. And so they're the ones who put up the signs
Yes.
and didn't have any kind of outreach to your group?
No, but there was, and I didn't put all of this information in the slideshow because I didn't want it to be really long, but there's a lot of, I've got documentation from different people that even when they had the people just didn't know that these meetings were happening. I think they did have them, but we had no idea.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm not gonna have my hand up, but I have a couple questions about like procedure stuff. So have we talked to State and Fish Wildlife about what's that is?
Yes,
What was
we
that?
did. And he said, you're not getting a trail.
They just shut it down. They weren't even helpful in
And
terms of.
what we're trying to do at this point is find who's above them, but we wanted LOCAC support before we try and do this. Because we're part of Los Osos, and we thought that would be helpful before we find out who's above the local biologist.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
I'm making notes on this, so.
So I want to add something in because the Habitat Conservation Plan, as Andrea mentioned earlier, is something that we've been following very carefully. And the way that is put together is that the county owned the land, Fish and Wildlife sets the regulations, and they designate the reserve. And so you have to kind of satisfy two ends. You have to satisfy the county part, and that's their input into the Habitat Conservation Plan. And then you have to satisfy the fish and game regulations. And then typically in a reserve, there is a third party that is hired to actually do the work within the reserve. And that I don't believe has happened yet because we're not that far along in the process, but apparently that's, Andrea, maybe you know more about this than I do.
Can you clarify what you mean by does the work? Enforces it, works on permitting?
They go in and they record what's going on in the reserve because
So it's an
the
enforcement
purpose
thing is what you're
is
meaning.
to create an environment for endangered species, whether they're plants or animals or whatever. And so they go in and they monitor.
Okay.
Can I
Well,
say
it's-
something?
It's also my understanding that that third group, let's just call it, Ed's Environmental, is gonna determine also the mitigations and the costs and that sort of thing.
Okay.
My understanding.
Yeah, so the mitigation being the offset, like if I want to build a sidewalk, then I have to mitigate that. And there's a cost where I pay a fee, that fee goes to mitigating and pay for the work that's done in the reserve. Does that make sense? That's the offset.
It seems odd to me that these signs have been put up and the habitat plan hasn't been finished yet.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't, it does to me, because if you have something big like that, they have to say, are they enforcing the policies that are in place, which obviously nobody has looked at for years and nobody thought we needed to, right? And so politically, they need to have their ducks in a row to get things approved. I've seen this before. So,
Yeah, Lisa, I don't know, but I'm gonna talk to some people in the Coast Commission. They're denying you access to the coast.
Correct.
Historical access.
They are.
That's
Good point.
that's why we have the Coast Commission that trumps everybody else. And views of our area and access to our area, especially historical. And it doesn't have to be on the coast. It just has to go to the coast. You know, I think somebody maybe is trying to cover their tracks, but they don't have a leg to stand on.
the final question I've got is, I actually did some private advocacy for this, especially this morning or afternoon, and because I know people that have worked in this, because I'm like tied to Central Coast, or was it Central Coast Mountain Biking 3CMB, and I have friends that are equestrians that work with them to do advocacy and that kind of stuff. Have you guys talked to these people? Are you involved with them? Because they have the skills to get the thing done when this kind of stuff comes up. I don't know if that's part of your group.
Who are you talking about? Say that again.
3CMB, it's a mountain biking group that
Okay.
maintains all the trails, but they
Okay.
work with equestrians to make it so that
They're awesome.
there's shared trails, and they do the advocacy for it. So I have my horse friends, and who did I talk to? I sent an email to Kathy, I think Redmond, who then sent out some messages. But when we guys had brought it up in public comment before, I was like, boy, I don't think they know that there's people who have experienced advocacy work with this. So I know that I had something circulate and ask people to attend this meeting, but obviously I don't think anyone did, unfortunately. But I wanted somebody who had knowledge about that, who could talk about what the process looks like.
That's a great suggestion, Kristen. We'll have to follow up on that. So
Yeah, so Lisa, please get in contact with me if you want. I already have put the feelers out and told people what was going on, and we just have to find the right people who know what to do. So
Thank you.
mhm.
So I'd like to entertain a motion, if someone's willing to make one, to support this equestrian group. I mean, how do you guys feel about it?
Can oh, go ahead, Larry.
I'd like to make a motion, but I'd like some of the questions we have out there answered first, you know, like Christian's group and, you know, other things that have gone before us, you know. But because I fully support this otherwise, you know, unless
So-
somebody
Yeah.
tells me, you know, it's a dead duck, you know.
Could, what about doing a kind of a, maybe just a really basic motion about preserving historical usage and access from the east and the west, something like that. I mean, we support the group, but what we really are supporting is the equestrian access.
Yeah.
Access.
Hey,
Excuse me.
can I make a suggestion? I also see Claire's hand up, but I wanted to intercede real quick. I think the first thing I would ask from Lisa and her group is, if they want a letter of approval, I would love them to draft it for our looking at it, so it's the way they want it for their politics.
Yeah.
And then we can approve it offline. Like we've done that before, where we send in our opinions or whatever and post it and whatever else they need. If we want to make a motion today, we can also just make a motion of general support or something. But I actually, or like, it's not a motion, it would be it's like a vote consensus or something. But I honestly would love to just see Lisa phrase it how she needs it, and then we can approve it or edit it. And then we can do that off meeting time if we want to.
Okay.
Could I ask you?
Claire, I want to let Claire jump in here because she represents the county. Let me see, Claire, do you?
She got it.
I think okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not the HCP, the Habitat Community Plan project manager. I don't know the ins and outs, but I just wanted to clarify because there are so many layers. The Habitat Conservation Plan is with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Wow.
And then Morrow Dunes Ecological Reserve is with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So we got a crazy nexus going on there, but I just wanted to clarify that.
That's a
Thank
good-
you.
Yeah.
That's important.
I wanted to suggest that, when we talk about historical use, we have to be careful because it could very well be that horses were allowed all over that area. And I think this group, and you can clarify for me and for everybody, that you want to make sure that you can connect by trail east and west and not be forced out on the street. But on the other hand, you're not asking for all of the ecological preserve to be open to horses. Am I saying it right?
That's correct.
Yeah, it might be helpful to have a map that kind of delineates where
Yeah.
you're actually wanting the access to be.
We have that map, it was that one I showed you that was kind of tiny.
Yeah.
We can make that better.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up for you guys.
Oh, no, they just need to, include that. I think that's,
Okay.
I think that if we want to do a consensus vote, we can certainly do that. And if that helps Lisa move forward, I don't think you actually need our help yet, is the only reason I'm like, procedurally, do we need to, or do we just need to, as private citizens at the moment, help you get where you need to go? Because I can see, again, I have way too much experience with this from doing, we put on like adventure races through wilderness, which is why I know a lot of this stuff. And whenever there's a lot of even in Yosemite, there's unincorporated trails and things like that that are not allowed to be on maps that people are using, and then they call them ranger trails and things like that. This is one of those things where it was somehow overlooked. Do we know that Fish and Wildlife even put it up? What if someone else got mad?
Yes, no, they put it up.
Okay. So somebody did, for whatever reason, someone with a dog or something got angry, or they needed to do what Deborah said. But now that it's on the radar, the problem is that when they want to sanction it, and this is what the process is, now they're going to be like, great, this is a headache because now we have to make a plan. And Deborah's right, we have to mitigate all this stuff. So it's going to be drama. And I just know that there's like all these steps, and like we all have to stay really consistent and like on top of that stuff. So like I've seen this a million times. It sucks. We'll probably be able to resolve this, but it'll take a long time because it's bureaucracy. So
Okay, well,
I can
that
say
wasn't
I'm
encouraging.
sorry, Larry, I didn't hear you.
I'm supportive of this effort.
Okay, so maybe we'll just sort of take a consensus vote here and say, with a raise of hands, who is supportive of this effort and who has concerns about, I'm definitely supportive.
I'm supportive.
Okay, all right. Is that unanimous? I think that was, Andrea, did you have your hand raised or
Yeah,
not?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so it looked like unanimous support for, finding out more about how we can help the equestrian community to achieve their goal of continued access. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We don't need
Yeah,
to
I
be.
think it's good for today.
Okay, all right, and then we can, revisit it if we need to do something more. But Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to do your presentation. Really appreciate it, and good job, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Night.
all right. I think we're almost to the end here. There's just one, where's my agenda? Oh, the time limit thing on, I'm gonna have to turn some lights on. So give me 1 minute while I run and turn on some lights. All right. There we go. Alrighty. So this has to do with the policies and procedures regarding time limits for public members of committee meetings. And it's something we've discussed a couple of times, but hasn't been resolved. So I want to open up the subject one more time. And I'm going to start by reading a letter. I happened to have a meeting with Sandra Saroff on a totally unrelated subject. And I was mentioning to her that we were having this discussion because she was involved with the revision of the bylaws. And so she wrote a letter. She sent it to me this morning And I'm gonna ask that you indulge me by just,
Can I support you in putting it on the screen so we can read it? Because I'm visual.
oh,
And Jim,
how am I
I don't
gonna
know
do,
what Jim's trying to
maybe
say.
I can do that. Okay, you're really pushing me, Kristen, out of my comfort zone here.
I'll do it. I can do it. I'll just do your thing. Like, let me just share screen.
How can you do it? Do you have it?
Then you give me, yeah, I have it. She sent
Oh,
it to the
okay, okay,
executive
yeah,
committee.
that's right, that's right. All
Yeah.
right.
No, I'm just that magical. There you go.
Okay, good. Perfect. Oh, do you guys just want to read it, or how about I read it and you
Read it out loud like it's
We'll
first
do it
grade.
together?
We'll rotate paragraphs. It'll be one of those.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so, I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for your continued service. I'm writing because I was recently speaking. We'll just skip the first paragraph. She had to go to a water polo game. But starting with paragraph 2, I wanted to share my perspective as I was chair of the bylaws committee when we rewrote the bylaws and policies and procedures. Members of the committee at the time were myself, Larry Bender, Sue Morgenthaler, Trish Bartel, Yael Koren, and Lynette Tronowski. This was about a 6-month process where we examined the bylaws, policies, and procedures with a critical eye to ensure clarity, to limit bias, and support a process that was fair and equitable as much as possible. We did spend a good amount of time discussing the process of having public members as part of committees, clarifying who gets to vote, who doesn't, how they are voted on, term limits, and the continued need for outreach and recruitment. With that said, we decided that term limits were necessary to create the space for bringing new voices into the mix. As you all know, it is very hard to recruit people, but at the same time, if the space is not created, then there is little incentive for others to join or acknowledge that an opportunity is available. For this reason, the bylaws committee felt that after 8 years, a committee member must take a year off, policies and procedures, section 3A 5D. Even if there was no one in line to take the position, at least the space would be created to do some outreach and let people know about the opportunity. If there were other people interested, then this created a fair and equitable opportunity for others to participate. Having given previous members an ample amount of time to be involved, I believe this is fundamental to our democracy, and even though LOCAC is small, your impact is large. These policies were created for a reason: to support multiple voices, to bring in new voices, and to limit favoritism and exclusion. I would urge the board to follow what was written and voted on. If there is no one interested in serving on the committee, then we wrote clause E, where the board can extend the 8 years of service, but only if there was no one interested in having created some space for participation. Policies and procedures 3A 5E. Below is the language. I think you should have all reviewed this language by now because I did send it out prior to the meeting. And the one thing that I see is that in section 3A 5D, it says, after serving a total of 5 years, a public member interested in continuing to serve must take a 1-year break. They must. It shouldn't be a big deal. After the break period, they may ask to be reappointed if there's a vacancy. So this has been my position on this particular issue. I think you guys already know that. What we want to do is somehow get to a resolution of this, not just for land use, but for all committees.
You want me to leave it up for everybody to look at, or should we take it down?
I think we can take it down. So let's have some discussion. Larry.
All this.
There. I know you stressed the must with that big silence after it, but the fact is there are 5 openings right now, and it seems like we only have 2 people interested in it. So there are openings that it seems like no one is interested in having. And I would like to see a full committee with all 7 members or 5 public members. I'm not sure, 7, I think. So I think 5E still stands, you know, so I'm in favor until, I mean, even if we only had one opening left, then maybe we should consider it just to, you know, to be more in line with what Sandra just said, but I don't see the interest there. And I'd rather have more members than a lack of them. And especially since I feel that the members that we're talking about are very well educated and experienced in what needs to be done on land use. So that's my opinion.
Any other council member? Danielle? And then Andrea.
So if we do vote to extend, would this be a change in the bylaw? Would we be actually changing the bylaw or just like amending it for a certain period of time?
It's basically at the discretion of LOCAC. It would not be, nothing would need to be changed in the bylaws. Because it's written into the bylaws that at our discretion, we can extend it.
Okay, Andrea?
Can someone describe what the outreach we have done to, I mean, I understand there's 5 positions, but what have we done to attract candidates?
I'll speak to that as outreach chair. I was not aware of it until this became an issue. Not directed to do any kind of particular outreach aside from committees are always looking for help. I do believe I put it in the last 2 newsletters. No, I think I did, but either way. And I personally recruited some people for it, as well as I know Trish did. I don't know that the committee itself has tried to recruit or done any kind of personal outreach, but that's, as far as I know, that's the extent of the public outreach that I have been part of.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? So here's where I think it gets sticky. It does say must take a break. All right. So we understand that. And then it says, but you know, you could do this. All right. And let's say we do that. We extend for these 2 lovely people an additional 2 years. All right. If you have another public member who comes to their 8-year term limit, you're going to have to extend them, because if you don't, then you were playing favorites. And that's what Sandra's talking about, is like favoritism. It's like, well, we did it for these 2. Why aren't you going to do it for this person? And how about this person? And how about this person? So this is where I think you get into trouble by allowing this extension for no good reason, because you've been operating with 5 members for how long now? You've been operating fine. Of course, we would love to have more members on our committees, but to say, oh, well, we have some openings, so we're just going to let them stay on because we have some openings, doesn't really address the issue of term limits. And why even put the term limits in if you're just going to allow people to stay on? Go ahead, Larry.
Well, it doesn't say that we have to extend them for 2 years. First of all, we could extend them for a year, because it really doesn't state that. Second is
right.
Other people that are up at the 8 years, it's not, it depends on what the state of the committees are at that time, if there are openings or not openings. You know, I mean, you know, 5D still makes it pretty clear that, you know, there is a term limit, but you know, when we have all these openings, 5E comes into. So, you know, the must becomes not so must because of 5E. But, you know, I would say that we extend it for a year instead of the 2 years and continue to do better outreach and better better outreach, basically, to look for new members, you know, and try to get new people on.
I'm ready to speak. I didn't really want to, but then I realized there's 2 members here that are new that are voting. So I think I'll have to repeat myself. But Larry, that's an excellent point, because I think Larry Bender requested 2 years and we all got it stuck like that was the policy. So seeing that in place, that it's just may extend the time. I see this as a bylaw flaw, and this happens, right? Language, we don't account for these kind of things. If the intent of the bylaw was to have people take a break, and the reason, my experience with multiple nonprofits and organizations is the reason you do that is because, and this is true even for my own company, if you have somebody in leadership for too long, it can close that to new leadership and new participation. So having a gap allows more people to come in that might be completely fresh and not be affected by the new people that will be. That's why we actually rotate through board members as well. And there's different years that there's elections and things like that. It's not all just one shot. It's to allow like a different perspective. So I feel very strongly about the intent of that taking a break after a year, because I've seen it in play both professionally and like in my volunteer experience. But I do want to highlight that we have the discretion to extend it. As far as I know, and again, Larry, I know you said this, but I don't remember it for the time I've been part of it. So as far as I know, we found out about it almost too late. So I think there's a beautiful middle ground that Larry's talking about, which is if we extend it for 1 year and get our stuff together and clarify that bylaw and do that outreach, then we can come back and talk about it, if that makes sense. I'm super open to that middle ground.
I like that compromise too.
Would we be willing to agree that if we did extend the 2 terms for a year, that those terms then then they must take a break? Or would we reconsider and potentially extend again? I could support a must, sorry, Kristen. I could support then you must take a break. I couldn't support extending again in another year.
I think my intent with my perspective, although not opposed to your thought, was that we have a year to figure that answer out. And then we have to decide if we need to enforce that must or if we don't. And it allows everybody to figure that out and have that input. But I'm not opposed to saying you must, I think that LOCAC has a leadership responsibility to identify that those 2 things are not mutually exclusive. And that's the big problem, right? It's like, you could do this must, but then also, by the way, you could just blow it through it.
You must accept.
Yeah, this is a rule flaw that they didn't anticipate, that now we're here exploring. So
yeah, it's great.
I think we have to explore changing the bylaws to read more in line with what we're actually wanting.
Yeah.
What is it that you actually want?
I would like more people on committees. That's what
the way you get more people on committees is by going out and I mean, we do know that this term limit was coming. This was not a surprise, and there was plenty of opportunity to do outreach and to find people to come on the committees. So adding another year, how is that going to change it?
I think I want to clarify that we didn't know. I would even be generous to say that it's possible, not to speak to you for later, but it probably came up fast and you didn't notice it until you had to enforce it. Am I right? I don't know. So
I'm kind of new to LOCAC, so.
I met Larry Bender, so you guys are looking right next to each other, so.
It really wasn't on my radar because relatively new member, so it wasn't something I even thought about. So it's new to me.
Yeah.
I just want to say, Lindy, I'm not ignoring you, but we're just going to talk council first, and then I'll open the floor to you.
To answer that question, Trish has been after me for at least 6 months, I want to say longer, reminding me that I've got this 8-year thing coming up.
Okay.
And at which time to her, I expressed, looking for candidates, looking for people. When I started on LOCAC, there was 5 of us. And I think with my help, I've built it up to a good number now that kind of represents our community. I'd hate to see LOCAC shift back down to 4 or 5 members.
How many members do you have now, Larry?
I don't have it in front of me, 6, 8.
And that includes the 2 new members that just joined your committee.
Yeah. You know, and I'm open for more.
How
I
many,
think
how many LOCAC members are on there, Larry?
3, 4 now with
4.
Molly 4.
And 3 public?
Yeah. No, wait, Molly's 4. And let me get my.
I have the roster here, and I don't know if it's correct, but
I
right
got
now.
Patrick, Molly.
Okay, Molly's on it now.
Yeah.
I've got Patrick, Molly, Robin McPeak, Sue Morgenthaler, Lindy Owen, Julie Tacker.
Old one. Sue's no longer with us.
Okay.
And Robin is a public member.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So she's not a committee member. She is a committee, she's a
Yeah.
committee member,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but a public member. Gotcha.
While we do this, I'm gonna update it just.
Not a LOCAC member.
Right.
Did you say Becky was on the committee? So I can just add it while we're talking. Not Becky, I'm sorry, Molly.
Molly.
Yeah. And Becky McFarland is another
on,
public
okay.
member.
I was right there, it was Becky.
So, you know, I appreciate what Kristen's saying about this is a bylaw flaw, but you know, I was not on LOCAC when this bylaws committee was formed that included Larry and Sue Morgenthaler and Trish and Yael and Lynette, but they went through this, I trust, very carefully, and they created this term limit, as Sandra said, for a reason, and it was voted on by LOCAC and it was agreed to by LOCAC. So I don't understand why there is any shifting of the sand here. We should just allow for the break to happen, bring in new members, which is what you're planning on doing anyway, bringing in and trying to fill the committee. And then 12 months from now, bring these ladies back on because they are, you know, very dedicated.
But Deborah, you make it sound like 5E doesn't exist when you make the statement like you just
In
said.
my opinion, it doesn't exist because
but they
only an
voted.
exception if there are not
does.
enough people to form a committee, and there's plenty of people to form a committee for land use. It's a functioning committee without those 2 people.
But it does exist and it was voted on.
But okay, you and I disagree, Larry. That's, you know, I'm okay with that. You don't see it as an exception. I see it as an exception. I see the term limit as being you must, and that there was a reason for that. And you say, well, you must, but you could do this instead. It's like A or B.
If I might, just to go between, it might be worth hearing from Lindy and then just taking a vote just right now, because Deborah is an accountant, right? So like you do see those finite rules and what's going to happen. And Larry is like a liberal arts person. So we have a little bit more of a like, okay, rules can be broken. So we're going to fundamentally see things differently. And I think that's acceptable. And that's why we vote. I think we keep trying to work towards sort of a consensus. And I kind of think we just need to stop the drama if we can and just move forward as helpfully as possible. And it may hurt somebody because that's what voting does, but at least we're all trying and we're all doing what was right. Nobody here is trying to be a jerk. We've had this conversation so many times.
Yeah,
So,
we have. So Danielle, I know you have your hand up. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry, Danielle.
Yeah, I just had a question. If we lose these 2 members for a year, is it a function of not having enough experienced people that we're worried about? Or is it just the number of people that we're worried about for this committee? Did my question make sense?
Well,
I'm going for experience. These people have experience and knowledge. We don't see eye to eye, which I like on a committee. I don't want a committee of all my friends. I want people that are going to challenge me and oppose me and question our committee, make us work. And these 2 people do that.
Okay.
But yes, I'm all for a vote on this. You know, we've beat the dead horse, you know, around and around and around. Let's just vote on it and get it over with and move on.
okay. All right. Well, I agree, Larry. We should vote on this. I'm going to let Lindy go ahead and say what she's, let me ask you to unmute. Go ahead, Lindy.
Okay, yeah, as one of the members that you're talking about, asking to step down,
I didn't
First off, I'd be
Sorry, I
glad
didn't even
to,
know you were on the committee, but yeah, I see it now. Okay, yeah.
I'd be glad to step down. I've been on land use for, I don't know, 18 years on and off as in many different roles.
Oh, I did that. I'm so sorry. I accidentally muted you instead of moving your hand. So please
Okay.
mute yourself. Oh no. Okay, now she hung up because she thought it got disconnected.
I'm not sure what
Oh,
you're
no,
doing.
there.
Okay, she's good. Okay, good. All right, let's start over. Go ahead,
I didn't mean
Lindy.
to shut
Okay,
you up.
everybody put your hands on your lap.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, I don't mind stepping down. I'm more into it because I want to have input, comment, and I like the diversity of opinions. And so that's what's important to me. If you want to go ahead and go with your D, and end my term, and you have nobody come on board, I think both Larrys are absolutely right. We don't have anybody on land use then to have input. My question and what my first, red flag about this whole discussion was it went in a direction that said we need to get these term limits established. So these two people are removed and I have two people I want to put on. And so the two people that were coming on have never attended a land use. If you're interested in something and you have curiosity, then you attend a meeting. Dave and Bev come to all the meetings. They don't necessarily want to be on the committee. So I think you're talking about the power of the votes that you're discussing in this issue. It's my personal feeling that you'd like to put fresh people on, but if they have no education, we don't have, it used to be county trainings where you went in and you learned about land use rules. You learn, there's a lot to it. I still am, failing at times to, so anyway, I think Julie Tucker has an amazing brain for all of it, whether you like her, and we disagree on many things. So the diversity to me is important. If you have nobody that wants to get on, unless you've invited them to come on because you want to put different opinions in, then I think I like the idea of 1 year extensions. That's a year goes by quickly. The outreach does not exist. We have 3 members of the public here, tonight. So land use is barely attended. It's maybe more attended than this meeting because there's applicants and so forth that come in and issues that I think are more focused for a lot of people. So I'll just say it right now. I'd be glad to step down, but I don't want to see you pick somebody that's a friend to come in with absolutely no interest or background and take a role in making votes. I just don't think that accomplishes what LOCAC stands for. So anyway, I think that was all I had to say. I like that it has diversity. I think Becky McFarland is very well informed. She does the work, she studies, she understands, she looks at county rules. Robin is the same. Julie and I, so we've got 4 people from the public that we have some experience in doing this. If you want to put inexperienced people in because they're interested, great. But they need to do the training and the county doesn't offer it as far as I can tell. So that's it.
Thank you, Lindy. Yeah, I think you made a couple of really good points there. And Dave and Bev are here. They participate in the land use committee and are very experienced. And if you were not on the land use committee as a committee member, you would also probably continue to attend and you would provide input, you would read the documents. There would be no lack of participation on your part, or I'm sure on Julie's part. The only difference is that Dave and Bev don't vote. Only committee members can vote. And I think that's an excellent point. The 2 people that have joined your committee were not cherry-picked to be on your committee. They were brought in because of the limited outreach that Kristen did really quickly based on the fact that she was told, oh, we need to do outreach. One is one of our new council members and one is somebody from the public. I believe Molly has actually a lot of experience.
And I welcome her.
So you know, we're not trying to, and I'm just telling you generally, we're not out there just trying to get, you know, fresh people to put into the land use so that we can replace you or anybody else. This is not about you. It's not about Julie. This is about setting the standard for our bylaws. And that's my position. It's not about the people. It's about, you know, this is what the bylaws say, and it says that for a reason. And if you don't like it, then let's get rid of that bylaw. That's how I feel about it.
I just wanted to welcome Molly.
Oh, yes, Molly.
And I don't know who this other person is, but.
He's on the call. It's Jacob Taylor.
Okay, welcome, Jacob. But
So-
has Jacob been to any land use meetings? I mean, if he really wanted to be on, I would hope that he would.
Can we not have such a negative tone of if somebody really wanted to be on something? I really want to point out that
I think that's a little bit of the point that I'm trying to make.
I hear that, but I want to say something about this, which is, hi, I run a company right now. I have 2 small children and I don't have the time to be at all these meetings. I would have had interest in land use, but I was actually sort of turned away when I started. And I have very deep experience in it, but no one has recruited me for it. I want to point that out. Okay. Beyond that, when you talk about diversity, I don't see the diversity. I don't see representation of business owners. I don't see representatives who are family members. I don't see people of color. I don't see different class striations. And I think that that's really important. And people, you don't actually know what people's backgrounds are. Because like if you said, oh, Kristen knows about land use, I do. And you're making assumptions by saying someone's showing up. If I say, hey, you're particularly somebody who's interested in this, I know you have a background, we just found out that there's desire to fill something. That's not cherry picking, and but you're kind of coming at it from a people don't understand that. And I really respect your opinion. You always come up with wonderful ideas, but I want to point out that that's sort of getting lost because of that argument. So
I would propose the compromise of the 1-year extension, where we get a chance to do more outreach. We know there'll be no secret that this is what we need to do. And then, and I admit we're going to kick the can down the road a year, but I think it's the best thing to do right now is to increase our outreach and then a year from now, settle on this policy.
Okay, we have Dave has his hand up. Dave, do you want to go ahead and unmute?
Actually, it's Bev this time.
Oh, Bev. You guys always
My
do that
interest.
to me.
Pardon me?
I said, you're always switching on me.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Anyway,
okay. I'm just
I want to say maybe you need to reevaluate the bylaws, but my concern about this committee in particular is that there's a great learning curve in terms of how to work with the county and all the different rules and how to even get in to see the different proposals. And I think that's something you don't want to just toss away. And I think it's also important that the people who are on the committee really care about the community and care about contributing to the committee. And those are just things I don't think you want to lose if you're really thinking about Los Osos. So that's my 2 bits. Maybe reevaluate your bylaws. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any other comment before? Because it sounded like John was making something of a motion there. So any other comment? Molly.
She's
Oh,
muted.
wait.
unfortunately, we can't hear you.
Can you unmute?
So I'm new to the committee and I am going to join the land use committee, and I was a fire inspector for the city of San Luis Obispo so for many years, just retired recently. So I have a lot of experience with dealing with planning issues and getting construction projects built and the sort of the process of it. So I think I will be a good fit for land use, but so I want to just mention that, but also I guess I don't really know the background so much because I'm new. I don't really know the background of how this came up other than sounds like if some people term out, then some of the committees, I don't know if it's just land use or others, but some of the committees might be short on people, but I imagine this is something that kind of ebbs and flows with time. And I guess I don't quite feel I have enough information to vote on the situation. So whose proposal was it actually to make the change to the bylaws to make it so that a person could stay more than 8 years? I guess that's kind of my first question.
I don't think anyone's gone to the bylaws part yet. I think we're just talking about making the exception so we can work on that.
There is a part D is the term limit. Part E says, but if there aren't enough people to fill a committee. And so there's a minimum number of people you need and there's a maximum number you can have. So if there's not enough people, you can make an exception and allow an extension for up to 2 years. So what I'm hearing is John wants to make a proposal or a motion that we extend for 1 year, 12 months, the term for Lindy and for Lindy Owen and Julie Tacker. During that 1 year time, we do some serious outreach to bring new people in, get them trained. Dave, Bev made a good point. It's a complicated issue. And so it takes a little while to kind of get that all sorted out. And so within that 12-month period, we would have some new people who would be experienced enough to keep the committee going in a healthy way. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Motion.
So John, is that a
That's a
motion?
motion, John.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Sure,
And we
wait,
have a
because that's
second?
like too vague. I made text based on what you said and I put it in the chat. So if you guys want to look at it, see if that clarifies what you want, because it was too like all over. And if you aren't able to read the
Term
chat,
limit for expiring members for 1 year. I think we have to say who they are.
members on the,
Otherwise, it's just going to be.
okay, how about members on the land use committee? And that's specific. I don't, or do we want to do names? I kind of want it to be like more vague and it not just be names.
No, I think we need to do names because otherwise it's just.
Well, they're the only two that have.
Lindy Owen and who was the other one? Julie.
Lindy
Tacker.
Owen and Julie Tacker for 1 year with the understanding that we commit to outreach training and revisiting the bylaws for more clarity. And then after the 1 year, what happens?
They term out.
Okay, for a year.
There's
That's
the
my
revised
understanding.
one includes their names.
Okay. Does that look right? Any comment about it?
I'll second that motion and call for the question.
Okay.
Thank you,
So-
Jim.
All in favor of the motion that.
Vote on this issue. We've been beating it to death.
I know. Everybody in favor of this motion, raise your hand.
I agree.
Okay, and Molly, were you abstaining or you're voting yes?
Oh, yes.
I'm voting yes.
Okay, so we have, did you count? I think I'm the only one who is voting no.
Okay, I'll make a note. I'm actually taking notes today.
Okay,
I didn't know.
all right, good. All right. So,
Molly, just one question. Molly, have you been receiving emails from me?
Yes, I have been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
all right. Yay!
Thank you, everybody.
Deborah.
Yeah, all
Have
right.
an amazing
thank
night.
you.
Wow, right at 9. Good work.
Thank you for a good discussion. I appreciate that. And we are right at 9 o'clock. We adjourn.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right,
everyone.
guys,
Good night, everybody.
take care.
Bye.